So,
Sorry, I don't want
no,
to.
you're totally fine. You are
Like,
totally fine. This is going to be so fun to edit. Let me tell you.
kind of
Let
like
me tell.
start from the bottom, you know.
Uh-huh.
Just go like piece by piece, like this part.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of work it, you know. Go up to
Uh-huh.
here, get a stopping point, and the
Uh-huh.
other part like that, you know, and kind of just like in one swoop, you know, and then yeah, okay, we're here. This is where we're at. All right. Say, my drags look crazy right now. Oh, hold on it.
Uh,
All right. Hello.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to Gamers Gab, the podcast by gamers for gamers. I'm Artsy from the Artsy Gamer. I make art, I play games, and I encourage others to do the same. And And joining me for today's episode on artificial intelligence in music and art is the one, the only ET. I mean, like, honestly, you had to expect that I had some sort of alliance with off-world intelligence, but it is the one, the only Cleo from composer Cleo. So, Cleo, before, do you need a moment to take it off, or did you want to like do your introduction this way? Because that's
This is a
fine.
part of me. I'm gonna take it off just so that I can function.
Yeah,
properly.
yeah. Go for it. Again, friends, composer Cleo is going to be joining me today. So, Cleo, before we get started on today's conversation, if you would, do a quick introduction about yourself, please, and thank you, and your pronouns.
Of course, yeah. So, my name is Cleo, composer Cleo. Some called me CC Slider. I primarily now I'm a musician, but I make Animal Crossing villager music videos, which is really fun, really cool. Which is a bunch of writing the lyrics, doing the production, getting the film for the music video, and then a lot of the editing and putting it out. And I like to make them as mementos for creators' channels. So it's a really cool process, really fun thing, get the community involved. My pronouns are he, him. And that's really fun as an introduction. I've been streaming for probably about 2 years now. Just kind of doing music stuff and yeah, I just love doing like community songs, getting people to sing and stuff like that. So it's really cool. Did I hit every nail that you asked me to hit?
Yeah, I know you're doing great.
Okay.
Don't worry about it. You're totally fine.
Cool.
So,
Cool.
Cleo, you had mentioned, and I wasn't surprised that you were also outside of YouTube a musician, where that is your outside of content creation. Well, I mean, music is content creation, but outside of YouTube as a job. And so, therefore, I think that you have a really great in with understanding how artificial intelligence has been affecting the music world, because all of our favorite artists and musicians seem to be trying to test various technologies that are just creating a new way of appreciating art. So before we get into it, let's do a quick introduction of what artificial intelligence is. And it's defined as a theory and development of computer systems able to perform tasks that normally require human intelligence, such as visual perception, speech recognition, decision-making, and translation between languages. So the spiel that I have created for today's episode is, with a wide range of opportunity and fear in how AI is incorporated into everyday life, the most recent controversy revolves around AI in art and music, both as a tool and creative method. The conversation about art with artificial intelligence in art specifically includes concerns with art theft, devaluing a human artist's time and effort, and if a line should be drawn with AI tools in the creative process. But what does that do for and with music? So, Cleo, what is your relationship with artificial intelligence in the music process, if at all?
So, first and foremost, I do want to, I guess, put out a little disclaimer. So, I do music, and I have clients that I produce for and mix for and write stuff for. But I probably don't do it at a consistently professional level. Like, I'm not trying to downplay myself. I do it for a number of clients, but I'm obviously not working in like big studios constantly, and I'm not, working on major radio records and things like that. But I obviously I'm in with the times and the trends of the music industry and the things that are happening. And the biggest thing that I've seen when it comes to AI in music is in mixing. So are you
Mhm.
familiar at all with the term mixing and mastering? So
Uh,
turn the question back on you.
yeah, no, it's okay. I think I know what mixing is, but
Hmm.
I think it'd be really great if you explain it because I just want to make sure that I
Sure,
understand where you're coming
sure.
from.
Yeah. So mixing, and I guess I'll explain in the simplest way I can. Mixing is the part of the music creation process that deals with making sure each individual piece of a project is leveled properly, has the right level of attention to detail. That could be the amount of echo on a track or someone's voice. That could be the loudness of the piano, or the in contrast to the violin on a song. Or and it's a combination of knowing where to place those different elements of the song in the spots that makes it sonically pleasing ultimately. So you don't want like your guitar to clash with maybe your other guitar. You don't want to, you want your bass to kind of stand through. You want your drums to sound clean. So that process is usually achieved with EQing, which is a lot, compression, and other tools. And that is where a lot of the AI influence is kind of infiltrated in music, from what I've seen, in the mixing process, but then also in the mastering process, which is what comes after mixing. So with AI technology, um, it has now allowed producers, musicians, small studio owners to achieve industry quality levels of mixing through AI. So instead of, oh, I've trained and I've gone to school to learn how to properly hear and train my ears to hear compression on vocals done a certain way, I can click this to match. Oh, I want a modern sound. Okay, modern, or more vintage. Okay, pop. And then ultimately have AI um, analyze the track or analyze the piece and then produce an output ultimately. So it bypasses all of the needing to know and the knowledge. So that's my yeah, that's my interaction with it.
Hmm.
Um, and I do use it, not in the mixing process, more in the mastering, but that's later on.
Hmm. So what is mastering? I'm sorry,
I can
did you?
expand on that too
Yeah,
if it
go for it,
helps.
please, please. What is mastering?
So okay, so the mixing process is making sure everything's leveled. So you want to make sure all that stuff is where it needs to be. And mastering is the final. So ultimately, mastering is usually, or I guess it should be, industry practice, best practice, is handled by a completely different individual. And that reason is usually due to the fact that um, as you continue to listen to a track or work on a song, your ears start to maybe hear things differently or overhear things, or rule
Hmm.
things out,
Hmm.
that now someone else would kind of with a fresh set of ears listen to, like, okay, well, the bass is too loud here. Let's bring this down. Needs more clarity here, more high end, things like that. And so the mastering person would then come in and pretty much do the final polish to then bring it up to radio quality levels, and then make it kind of what it needs to be in the end. So the mastering process is pretty much the polish that goes on top, and even that has been automated,
Hmm.
um, to the point where it's literally a click here. Do you want this kind of sound? Sometimes you can even model it after a certain artist or a certain genre, a certain era,
Wow.
and you can send it through. Yeah, and it's it's again it's great for the home studio, for the people that don't have access to or the funds to um get things done a certain way. But
Hmm.
the threshold to enter is extremely low. I'm
Hmm.
talking about, to get this plugin, you can get it on sale for $1. Usually it's like 200 something, but you can get it on sale for insanely cheap. Um, and again, so the threshold being low means that, I mean, anyone can do it,
Hmm.
as long as you have like the software and stuff to do it. So it's great, right? Because it opens the door for people to be able to do these things. But then of course, then there's the part that, okay, well, now studios are losing business.
Hmm.
Maybe people that are going to school for these things and to learn how to do this thing, like the art of it, the art of compression, and the art of all these things, all of that time and effort that's being put into that is, I wouldn't say completely null, but
Hmm.
for the general maybe listener or general producer or artist, they're not looking at these things as quite as valuable. And of course, I see that on my music side, but I can definitely feel that or see that when it comes to the visual art of AI that AI produces as well, where someone may learn all the stuff there is about brushstrokes, and I don't know any other art stuff because I'm really bad at visual drawing stuff. But and then you can have AI that can be like, oh, I like this part and I like this part, and I'm going to do this, and then here's your final product. And again, to the general person, like, oh wow, this is an amazing painting. It's like, well, this isn't necessarily a painting; it was a computer generated thing. So yeah, that's
So I guess to paraphrase what you were saying is that it has the potential for being a really great tool for adding to the music building of the process. And you're going to have to forgive me because my music theory is back in college for one course, and that was only because the professor was kind of like this delightfully older gentleman who is pretty handsome. So like what I'm saying is like my understanding of music theory with regards to, especially with the software that you have, is very limited. So I guess what I'm trying to understand is, and you probably already explained this already, so please forgive me if I basically ask the same question. But when you are live and you do your music mixings and you are able to change pitches, you are able to change beats, you are able to do a lot of basically editing someone's tone and the way that it's utilized, is that considered AI?
I think if we go based off the definition, probably not. But I would argue that to a degree, there's a level of processing that is obviously artificial, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not automatic, and not that it's not necessarily AI is always autonomous, but to a degree, I would say yes. So taking someone's regular voice and then being able to add in vibrato, change the pitch, and make it sound a certain way, I would argue that yeah, to a degree, but not necessarily. No, it's more so just processing, vocal processing. The same way that maybe altering a photo in Photoshop isn't necessarily AI. It's the same kind of concept. Yeah. It's like why you can bring out the lights or the darks in something. It's technically the same thing. So
yeah, I have the same thing with Clip Studio Pro X, which is the art software system that I use to make comics and illustrations. And interestingly enough, Clip Studio is looking to incorporate AI processes into their software, which you can basically do like these little blobs of color and then do a prompt of like a mountain with a lake, and then it inputs exactly what you ask for. And I'm always really hesitant. Yeah, I'm always really hesitant to demonize technology that is truly innovative, because I do think that there is a very it speeds up the process for a lot of things. Like for those who don't know, with webtoon artists, there is a huge expectation to create effectively 10 to 15 comic pages in one long spread. And, you have to do what you can to add as quick as possible backgrounds and, just plugging things in. And with AI technology, you can basically have something that is individually unique, but still matches in the tone of what you're looking for. Sure, and so what you were saying about with music is, one, it has the potential to being a great equalizer, right? With allowing people who are very interested in music and perhaps can't afford to go to a 4-year school for music theory, or perhaps are just trying to see whether or not that's something they want to do. But we also are noticing that it has the potential for devaluing music. And there was a tweet, I'll have to share it, but it was something about how AI doesn't necessarily equalize the playing field, so to speak, but it creates really great clients. And so it focuses more on the demands of what the client is wanting over the artistic process. And so I guess what I'm hearing from the professional music standpoint of this conversation is, on one hand, it allows for a creativity that we've never seen before because the technology is just developing all the time. But studios are also not only losing money, but devaluing the work that musicians and for those who do mixing and mastering, is the title also referred as a musician, or is it a different term?
The term that you'd use for like a mixer or a mixing engineer is a term, or engineer, audio engineer,
Audio engineer. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like the potential for really devaluing what an audio engineer does.
Yeah.
So is your overall opinion of AI in the music industry the same, or a general consensus, I should say, about using AI?
So you're asking if my feelings specifically AI related to AI in the music industry, does that relate? Do I feel the same way about AI as a whole?
Yes,
Um,
within the music industry.
yeah. I feel like of the issues in the music industry, it's definitely currently along or along the lower end. It's not one of the bigger issues. Like I would argue, and I say issue, I don't necessarily mean issue either, because again, it is simply a tool, you know.
Hmm.
I do think still having someone who can pay attention to a mix and you know and do the mastering process the original way, or the way that is more of the art way, has its value, has its place. Um, but no, I'm not against it. Sorry, the question was, do I feel the sorry the
No,
question
no,
again?
it's okay. So the question, it was a very kind of muddled question.
No
Your
problem.
approach to AI in music, either using it or your opinions of how it is used, is it similar to what the general consensus is to what we would see in the music
Gotcha.
industry?
Gotcha. Yeah, I feel like increasingly, yes. I feel like more artists and more producers and more um, audio engineers are starting to kind of feel this way.
Hmm.
So I definitely don't feel like I'm in the minority when I'm saying these things. But I do think that as someone who's done mixing and mastering, and learned the process, it obviously it's a big time saver. But I do feel like I guess it's easier for me to kind of give an example.
Hmm.
So when mastering, usually the process is you're adjusting things, you're making changes, you're doing the stuff. But the biggest part of it, I would say personally, is then taking this final song. So we recorded a song for Gamers Gab, right? And I'm going to take this song and I'm going to listen to it on my bad headphones. I'm going to listen to it on my good headphones. I'm going to listen to it in the car. I'm going to listen to it in my mom's car. And then in that process, find out things in the mix or in the master that are not tweaked properly, and then go back and tweak it, and then listen to it again in all those places for different reference points. And being able to remove that for efficiency is great, right? Because now I can finish a master or finish a track in a lot less of a time. So I think generally a lot of audio engineers will probably agree with that point. Um, and I think it'll probably just be a matter of time before it just becomes accepted as a part of the music process, you know, kind of streamlining that. So I think yeah, it's becoming accepted, but I think the sentiment is the same
Hmm.
in the music industry
How
right now.
so at least for the art aspect, like the 2D, or on paper or online, the sentiment that is often referenced with why artists are vehemently against AI
Yeah.
becoming a subgenre is because artists are already struggling to have being paid in general
Yeah.
an accepted part of society, which is
Yeah.
kind of unfortunate because, I would argue that art and music is the most widely consumed
Yeah.
piece of our society, and yet
Yeah.
they don't understand that a comic page, for example, that you can read within 15 seconds will end up being 16 to 20 hours with
Yeah.
multiple people working on it. So you're
Yeah.
basically looking at something that could be
It's
worth
market
about
value.
it's
Yeah.
$500. And so
Yeah.
I'm curious. And if this is too personal of a question because it is a financial question, how how is the audio engineer's time, marked for value? So what you
Hmm.
do, how do you lay out the price point?
Hmm.
And we can also go into with streamlining your process with AI. How is that? How is the that price going to be affected, and how,
Hmm.
like, will you have to argue for the fact that your time is still valuable with
Yeah.
AI processes?
Yeah. Um, Well, I will say for starters, I know audio engineers that will do a master for $200 that are small.
Hmm.
From local studios that I know, where people that just went to school and came out of school, and that's what they would say. Oh, start at this point.
Hmm.
And I know people that will do down to $50 for a master, 50 US. Um, but so obviously now we see this major disruption, right? Whereas that instead of $200 to a specific individual for one track, I can
Hmm.
spend $200 at the high end for this plugin, or I can get it on sale for $1, and then I don't need
Yeah.
to go to that middleman anymore.
Hmm.
So um, I think personally, for me, what is kind of happening is the clients that still come to me, they recognize my expertise, and maybe they recognize my discography, and can use that as a reason to justify paying for it. Um, and but there's also a large part of me that also, now that I've adopted using AI as a part of my workflow, um, that I do feel like, and I do this, and I haven't quite figured out how to properly do this. Um, Change my prices to reflect the amount of effort that I'm putting in, because I personally, morally, would not feel right having the guy from down the street sending me a bunch of songs and I'm charging him $200 per song, when I know that my process is now a lot more simplified due to the fact that I'm using some kind of AI technology. So, I mean, morally, like, I couldn't do it.
Hmm.
So usually I'm like, yeah, okay, well, I'm going to do this and this. And like, would you want me to use this, or you want me to do it this way? And then I'll kind of let them choose from there. But I know studios, I don't work with them anymore, honestly. I really don't. Not just for this reason, but I know
Hmm.
studios that are adopting these AI technologies, or even using like certain levels of sampling, and they charge their regular prices, if not higher, just as things have been getting more expensive.
Yeah.
And again, the general artist is just not aware. They don't, maybe they don't know about this AI technology exists. They don't know about these plugins. They don't know about these different things.
Hmm.
So it's yeah. But I'm not sure if that quite answered your question,
I think it did
which was
because,
okay.
yeah, it's more about whether or not the effort you put in, and I'm not saying that you
Hmm.
don't put a lot in effort, but like the effort as in the time that would typically go to, hand,
Yeah.
changing and shifting
Yeah.
things is now suddenly streamlined, which means you have
Yeah.
more time to
Right.
like basically complete multiple projects within the same time that
Yep.
would take for one. And what I'm
Yep.
hearing is you feel that it is a moral obligation, at least from the artist side, to reflect that, because you were able to do multiple things within that
Hmm.
one, time allotted for making content, that
Yep.
suddenly you have to change your prices to reflect that. And I'm
Yeah.
also hearing that the music industry can become exploitative with saying, oh, well, now we have just this ability to make a lot of
Yep.
money within the same time frame with less effort. And that means that, does that mean that, I'm assuming then that the artists that are, they give their music to, that either means that they're not paid more because of the raising prices that the industry is utilizing, or are they having to pay more for these processes? Because I think you said that they're starting to charge. You're welcome. Like, as I said, I don't know if this will affect your professional
No,
standing,
no, I'm
but
good.
okay.
I'm good. And again, I try. I do my best, since the music stuff is a side job for me. My main job is actually in IT, so that's my primary thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I have the love for music,
Mm-hmm.
but I obviously, again, I'm still a big observer, and I'm still involved in my local community and their music and stuff, like in the music scene. So I do hear all of the murmurings, and I see all the things happening. Um, and yes, usually the artist is getting the short end of the stick.
Mm-hmm.
And they're they don't there's usually very little regard for it. And I think the main reason, just I guess as a producer, is you work with a lot of artists. I mean, I've mixed so many things for so many different people, and I think the thing that's probably most commonly said among a bunch of audio engineers is like, oh, people just come in and they go, and
Mm-hmm.
they, maybe someone wants to do a song, and then maybe they don't want to continue their career, and maybe they're just really into it for a certain time, and they're not serious. So, and that's a lot of the clients, is people that just, oh, I want to put out the single, and they put out a single and they're not consistent,
Mm-hmm.
and they stop doing music. But those are a lot of the clients. Usually the returning people, they're a big part of the clients as well. But like, they may put out an album, and then they'll wait for a while, and maybe they'll do it at another studio the next time, or So I feel like maybe certain studios don't feel that obligation to the
Mm-hmm.
non-consistent artists that are kind of here and there because they just
Yeah.
come in the clients, they
Yeah.
buy and they leave. So, but me personally, I guess as an artist, and then kind of learning and the different processes and starting to do it all by myself,
Mm-hmm.
has kind of, I've come from that point where I'm like, oh man, I remember when I used to go to the mixing person and be like, hey, teach me your ways. How do you do this? And then I would get gypped. So
Mm-hmm.
I kind of feel, I can feel for that person in that position. So I do my best to not do that.
Mm-hmm. So we kind of already talked about the advantages and disadvantages of utilizing AI in your process. And I guess before I ask this question, do you mind going into like what you do with IT? Like I don't, it doesn't have to be like where you work, but is your work with IT somehow complementary to your understanding to AI and the process within music?
Within music, no.
Mm-hmm.
AI as a whole, not really, but
Mm-hmm.
kind of.
Mm-hmm.
I work. I'm an incident management specialist, so I
Okay.
work with pretty much addressing incidents as they come.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it is kind of reporting. We do a lot of KPI stuff, making sure our metrics are good, and being
What
able
is
to like
KPI?
KPI is key performance indicator. So,
Okay.
like for example, let's say you have a let's say you have let's say you have a team, and this team is supposed to put out X amount of product for across a month. So by the end of the month, you'd be like, all right, well, this is how much the team has pretty much put out. So it's just a
Mm-hmm.
way to track the performance, but it's at different levels for different things. Sometimes it's percentages, sometimes it's different things. So um, it's a lot of reporting, a lot of things like that, kind
Mm-hmm.
of making sure system uptime is good for our different applications and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
From what I've seen, there is a common mix up between AI and like automation, because in ways they're autonomous. Something is
Mm-hmm.
happening, you're doing a thing, and then something is being put out, or something is told to do a certain thing. And automation is something that I'm a lot more familiar with at work, where we'll make upgrades to our system, and we'll start a deployment for a new software that will ultimately make a process that was manual before obsolete, and in a
Mm-hmm.
way that is removing someone's job security.
Mm-hmm.
I've had it where people that are working on a project that will then make their job obsolete, and then they are, they're out of a job, and it has happened. Um, so AI, no, but AI is a very big thing, obviously in IT too, because it's IT professionals who are kind of helping to develop and
Mm-hmm.
shape this, which is why I probably think that it kind of pains me
Mm-hmm.
because I may have someone who's doing this AI technology that is not music or art based, that is now able to kind of create and shape the precedents for where we're going with art. So
Mm-hmm.
that's
So,
how, yeah.
thank you for the explanation. So, we had
Sure.
already kind of talked about the advantages and disadvantages of AI being introduced to music, but what are the advantages and disadvantages that we may not be considering right now that you're kind of seeing the writing on the wall right now?
In regards to
The
AI's
advantage,
usage or the lack of
the AI usage. Mm-hmm.
time is the biggest one.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like I was talking about before with the mastering. So instead of
Mm-hmm.
having to listen to it here, listen to it there, the AI is like, okay, we've compared it against all these different, locations and sounds, and this is what is the optimal sound, radio ready. So
Mm-hmm.
time is the biggest thing. And when I say time, I mean, there's been times where I sit on a master for a client for a week, and I'm, making sure, oh, listen to it. Oh, I don't like the way that sounds. Bring it back. Oh, I don't like the way that sounds. And usually that's a personal thing,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of it also is very subjective, right? Because everyone's ears are different, and then usually there's a lot of effort and time put into mixing something for like a really great sounding setup, when in reality a lot of people are going to listen to it maybe on AirPods or through their
Mm-hmm.
phone speakers, which isn't the most audio perfect kind of place. Um, but sorry, going back to the question. Um, oh no, I lost it. I knew I was
Do you want me
going.
to restate the question?
Yes, if you
Okay.
can. Sorry.
Yeah. So the what are the advantages and disadvantages to
Yes.
introducing AI that we may not be considering
Yeah.
that you see that as the
So
writing on the wall?
Yeah, so again, time is definitely the big thing. So
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna go on to say that when I say time, so again, for me, maybe like a week. where I'm sitting on a master for somebody has been condensed into maybe 30 seconds.
Wow.
Um, it's that, and I can show you the process sometime offline if you'd like to see it, or I can show it on stream actually sometime. But
Yeah.
it literally is choose the type of sound you're looking for,
Mm-hmm.
and then it listens to the track. Usually you'd play like the loudest portion of the track because that's where
Mm-hmm.
you kind of want to make sure that everything's leveled properly, not clipping or going too loud.
Mm-hmm.
Just have that play for a little bit. It's doing its process. This part's done, and it tells you what it's doing. And then when it's done, it's done. So yeah, I think time is the biggest thing because I mean,
Mm-hmm.
me having and then organization too, because I'm instead of having, oh wait, whose mix is this? Okay, I have to listen to this one. I have to make sure that I'm listening to this too. I make sure I'm not like wearing on my ears and making myself numb to the sounds. Like now I can do this in a sitting and go through an album or two.
Wow.
So time is the biggest thing. Yeah, time. I'd say time is the major thing, which is why I would say it's great. I think that's a major advantage because
Mm-hmm.
then again, like we're saying, we can focus on other things.
Yeah.
Yeah, disadvantage would just be the time that people that have went to school and put
Mm-hmm.
in done the effort to kind of learn are kind of losing the battle there. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's really hard because often I want to do an episode on Gamers Gab eventually about the importance of understanding how to break down price range for your
Mm,
time because I
yeah,
often this has
yeah,
nothing to do with AI, but I often see a lot of artists even within content creation who charge $8 for an illustration or a commission when that would take them at least an hour to 2 hours. And I'm going,
yeah,
you are charging yourself, like you're charging not even minimum wage. And
yeah,
so I think the problem that I'm seeing is the clients specifically who already undervalue art and music are going to say, well, why would I have to pay you when I can just input
yep,
this into a prompt or I
yep,
can just use software that, as you said, it could be $1. And
yep,
I'm going, well, then maybe you should do that because if you
yep,
can't pay me
exactly,
what I'm worth and for my
exactly,
bills, why
yep,
are we having this conversation? And
yeah,
so I think one
yep,
of the main disadvantages is that there's already an ignorance outside of the music industry of how much goes into making a single song, and that even
yeah,
though we have artificial intelligence as a way to not only equalize the playing field but to streamline the effects and all the things that allows you to be more efficient, you're still worth your time. Like you still have bills to pay, you still want to like have a burger on Friday. It's like I
oh,
don't understand why with the utilization of AI it removes the humanization of the work that's put into it. So
yeah,
I totally I hear that because I knew that this was going to be something that we shared is people don't understand the work that goes into the
nope,
process already. And even
no
though
idea.
AI is becoming a tool
Tool.
that we we're still having to fight for being culturally relevant and important to society.
Yeah, yeah,
So
no, I 100% agree, and I think you hit the nail on the head with the especially the artist or the producer kind of or the content
mhm.
creator undervaluing themselves. It
Yeah.
doesn't help, where it's like I just want someone to appreciate my work, so then you're like, oh,
Me too.
I'm gonna cut myself, and then jeez, like I'm just gonna, it's fine, it's for free, it's fine. And
Hmm.
then when then they have the competition up against a system that is ultimately able to do this more
Hmm.
consistently and faster and all these things
Yeah.
than you can. Maybe you have another job and maybe you're caught up with this and that.
Hmm.
I mean, because I do believe that like that consistency kind of beats out talent, especially when it comes to like putting out content. So it beats it in the sense that it can do it faster.
Hmm.
I personally value content that takes the time because
Hmm.
as someone who takes the time to do my own content, I'm like, I can see it. I can feel the
Yeah.
passion behind this project. But again, for the general, I mean, the person who's listening to stuff on the radio, maybe, or the person that's
Yeah.
hearing the sound in the background of a TikTok, I'm not trying to little TikTok, but they may just, oh, haha, this is a nice song, cool. But they may not know that, like, oh, not only was AI probably used to create it, but maybe that this is just a sample pack that someone made with quick put together of combination of sounds, and it didn't take very much. So there's very little regard for the creation process, and
Yeah. So
can be disheartening.
I know that you're not able to see the members who were sharing their quips, but Kuri from Kuri
Oh, am I
Dune.
not a member?
No, I don't think so. It's
How did I
okay.
see EJ's? Did it expire? I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. So it's a Kuri, and also Kuri says hello. Kuri was saying, I think that there's still a lot to say about how even though a system can do it, someone who has the expertise and the knowledge can pick up any small changes that needs to be made versus some rando J down the street. And as you said, I think we're kind of transforming our financial model. I hope so, that you are paying effectively for the artist. You're not paying for the content anymore. You're paying for the representation that the artist is giving you that is yours and yours alone. And I think that's kind of where we may need to start with incorporating AI as a subgenre, is that, you know, if you want to have something that's cool and unique, that is basically pieces of different parts that, you know, AI comes together, that's fine. Like, I know that I'm going to get a lot of flack for this because on a completely other tangent, I'm against NFTs because, you know, how everyone says, oh, artists can like take control over their art. That's not how that happens. But I don't have a problem with artists selling their own work as NFTs, because if that's what they want to do and that's their prerogative, that's their own business. I don't personally.
Agreed.
However,
100%, yeah.
however, like, I don't want to demonize an entire innovation, because I do think that AI has the potential to be truly an equalizer for those who have accessibility issues, right? So for example, if you don't have the, you know, the hand coordination to use a stroke, that you can create something and it's still a magical experience. In the same way with music. I don't know what sort of either disabilities or impairments that AI could be utilized for music, but perhaps someone really wants to create something that is just audiographically pleasing.
Sonically.
Thank you.
Sonically pleasing. Yeah.
Sonic the Hedgehog pleasing. And and you know, it I think it allows for people to really just tinker with things in a new and creative way. But this is actually a great segue to the next question: is what can we as creatives do to hold the usage of AI with a healthy level of accountability in our industry?
I think that completely depends on the space that it's being used in.
Yeah.
So for example, like in a large space, like the main studio, you know, big industry named record labels, I doubt that they're going to be taking morality and things like that into account, because it's all about numbers, it's all about clicks, it's all about, you know, getting things to the top charts.
Yeah.
So I think that becomes a responsibility of the community that is accepting and utilizing the technology.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it comes down to that. I think it just requires that we be mindful,
Mm-hmm.
that we kind of speak to, you know, our involvement the same way that we probably would speak to like maybe having a sponsor for a video, you know.
Yeah.
Instead of like, oh yeah, this keyboard's so great, I'm using this new keyboard, yeah, I like this new
Mm-hmm.
keyboard. And it's like, oh well, maybe we want to say this is sponsored by, you know. I think we'll have to kind of adopt things like that so that we're transparent. If that's, of course, that's the goal, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I personally, that's the way I kind of approach things. I like to be transparent and make sure that whoever is watching my content, digesting my music, whatever it may be, that they know where it's coming from, what I'm doing, how it's being done.
Yeah. Curry was saying, I definitely think that AI can have a use in the way of brainstorming, visualization, personal use, etc. But there's a huge concern that it'll get the same value works people have spent a long time developing, which is what you were saying, is that...
And it does.
Yeah.
It does to the general audience, again, the general listener. Like, again, if we're talking about just music, even if we stepped away from AI for a second.
Sure.
One thing I've talked about in my streams is the sampling. So we have, again, great tools for those that are not involved in music, like, for example, Epidemic Sound. I'm not sure if you're familiar with their library of a bunch of different sound. So there's a bunch of, I guess, applications or things that people that make content can go to find maybe music for a certain scene. Maybe it's like you need funny music for like a specific moment in your video, or you need like some dramatic music, or maybe you need a sound effect. Those things, again, are usually things that someone would have been producing, you know. So now you have a large database that you can access, pay a subscription, a monthly fee, whatever it may be, and you can get access to all these sounds and things that producers also use And then in this process, you can now kind of Frankenstein, put some things together, and then have a final product that doesn't require music theory knowledge, doesn't require knowing how to play an instrument, doesn't require maybe even knowing how to use audio software to put it all together. So, and that happens time and time again in the music industry. And the reason again is because of time. So instead of finding a guitarist, paying a guitarist to play out this loop for a pop song for a new artist, they'll go to this database, they'll look for a specific sound, they'll download this sound, they'll drop it in a track, they'll send it to the artist, and it's a number one hit. And it's kind of engineered to be that way. And the general listener says, oh, I love this person's music so much. And it's like, well, this person's music may have actually come from here and here and here. And, so it kind of already does exist. And I think that it's kind of, it becomes a question of, should the general person care? Should the general listener care? Should they care as much as the creator does? And usually they don't, unless they care about the creator,
Yeah.
And then we share our gripes and our feelings about it, and they say, oh, well, I understand why this is that way. But usually I'm like, oh, I love this person's music. It's great. It's like, I'm not going to look at who produced it or who, so.
It's so funny that you said about like different pieces that kind of come together, and we kind of forget that, at least for me, the paintbrush that I use for Clip Studio was something that I purchased from an artist that was like, they the way that you create a paintbrush, especially with Clip Studio or with Photoshop, is that often you will input a real tool, and then you will scan it, and then you will like put it down, you'll like tone it down, and you'll edit it to perfect it, and then becomes a continuous texture. And the work that people do to create almost realistic inks and pencils and things is astounding. And we often forget that people, from I wouldn't say the molecular level of art, but like from the very base, it's this buildup of a whole. That I know that the argument with like, a human artist takes inspiration from what we learn and we take from other people to create something unique. And then the argument is, well, how is AI any different? And another quote that I have learned from an artist, or from an article about Nirvana, because there was an AI generated Nirvana band that had taken a lot of the tones and the vibe of what Nirvana does, because Nirvana was unique in how they started experimenting with different music. And this is me like talking out of my ass, by the way. Like I don't know anything about how Nirvana is specifically unique, but the quote was that humans are unique in the sense that they can create things that have never been seen before, whereas AI is unique in the sense that it takes what humans have already done before. And we also forget that even though we are inspired by other people, it's really important to, how was I going to word this? It's very important to recognize that so much of what we take for granted in society is time and effort that people have created. So that bonk you hear from Twitch as a bit is someone took the time to create a bonk. Someone who gave you a free paintbrush that is a replication of a real pencil. Somebody scanned a pencil stroke in order to make that happen for them, and then gave it to you for effectively pennies or free. And
exactly.
And so I think when you were talking about accountability within the field, that I do think that this is probably a really great point for artists to stand up and say, no, actually, you do need to pay us. And actually, you need to recognize that even though you may not understand the process, you need to trust that we do. And therefore, even though that we are becoming more streamlined with what we're able to create, that doesn't take away the bills we have to pay each month. That doesn't take away the fact that I want to buy a nice little, happy coffee too once a week. I want to live beyond, Right. And interestingly, Oak, also, hello, Oak, welcome in, said that they have aphantasia, which I believe is the condition where you can't picture anything with your mind's eye. So Oak, please correct me or, confirm whether or not that's true. That AI could definitely help me to brainstorm and visualize, but to me, it would never replace actual art. Do you know what aphantasia is?
I don't.
Okay,
that's
so
not a term that I'm familiar with.
I think I'm correct when it's this idea that, and I find it so fascinating that there are some artists who literally can't picture, let's say that you want to draw an apple, right? And so you are able to visualize what an apple looks like. Can you do that for me? Like imagine like the typical apple that you would have. I am correct. Yes. So so imagine with me just like the most beautiful apple, right? It is a red apple that has, you know, a series of colors that are put in along the side because it's not a purely red apple. And maybe it has the stalk, and maybe it's within a yellow highlight with a blue shadowing. A person who with aphantasia can have a varying levels of not actually being able to picture an apple in their mind's eye. And so they have to utilize, outside references in order to apply what they incorporate on paper. Yeah. So Oak is saying I cannot visualize an apple in my mind's eye. And so, and it has varying degrees of I would probably say image blindness within the brain. And so I think with AI, with music, someone who perhaps can't, I don't want to say visualize the sound, but like can't hear it, being able to utilize it as a prompt or something, or being able to incorporate like, I like this, so I want to take this, and I like this, and it'll come together. And then they basically were able to create something with that, you know, I don't want to say disability, but like with that an ability to do something.
In the way. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you're fine.
No, I was going to say, 100%. I agree. I think even just for creator's block or writer's block, whatever it may be, it's a great tool to kind of get things going. You know, for how to approach something, you know, so I definitely 100% agree with that. And that's why, again, I believe that it does exist as a tool. I just think that, again, it comes down to the individual using it to not exploit it. And I just think that the potential for it being exploited because of the time that it saves is very high. And it's very possible. So again, for niche situations or, you know, or the not general use, then absolutely. And I'm not saying that shouldn't exist in either. I think that it's perfectly fine for it to exist. I just think that we're going to see different varying levels of it being exploited depending on where it's being used.
I guess like speaking of AI and art, our mutual content creator friend, Timmy versus Tommy, also known as Mike, has done really something interesting with AI prompts. Like, I don't know if he paid for the software, if he just found like something online, but he basically input like some prompt, like a sentence or something to create new Animal Crossing New Horizons villagers. And he made a really interesting point that as something to utilize and be part of the creative process, I don't think that there is any harm. And I know that I'm probably going to get a lot of flack to people who have actually been impacted. And so I would argue that I will never support a use of technology in a way that negatively affects people. Like I can't. But I do think that there is something to be said, and as I think we've come to have a general consensus that there is a fun, cutesy way that you can utilize it. And it can even be, as we said, perhaps accessible to the creating process. But again, it is unfortunately to the responsibility of the artist to start standing up and saying, no, our time is worth what it needs. So I guess we're gonna finish this this conversation with the final question, where is it possible that the emergence of AI in creative fields will lead to whole subgenres of the creative process? And my thought process with this question revolves around, as I said, accessibility and entirely new ways of being creative. Do you think that AI will suddenly kind of just be a little niche part, or is it kind of just blurring the edges within the music process in general?
Personally, I think that it's already blurred the lines. I feel like it's already integrated into it enough for it to be enough to the point where if it's removed, it'll cause an impact. And it's actually funny. I only talked about the AI on the kind of polishing aspect of the music creation. I didn't talk about it when it comes to like the creation, because things like sequencing have been around forever, you know, with different machines to like generate notes at different times. So I wouldn't necessarily consider that AI. But of course, there's AI that can also do that as well.
Yeah.
Oh, we're gonna take this sound and make this sound.
Mm-hmm.
But so I feel like yeah, I don't see that it'll be able to separate itself from mainstream. I feel like it's already
Yeah.
integrated in mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like usually that kind of happens, right? Something new kind of emerges, and the mainstream is usually what kind of latches onto it and then determines how its
Mm-hmm.
use is going to be a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think we're just going to continue to see it expand.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see that it's going to be something that slows down either. Not in the
Mm-hmm.
music industry anyhow. Okay.
So, Cleo, from composer Cleo, thank you so much for joining me for this episode. I always kind of worry about having conversations where it's like science oriented, mostly because I think I'm part of the general public that understands a little bit, but I definitely don't know the value or the impact that it can have on, the professional setting, aside from what I've seen with art and how it could possibly impact the artist. But
Yeah,
I
the
really
artist, yeah.
appreciate the time that you took to explain the IT part of it, the processes of making music. And if you have like little clips with how that works, I would love to put it on the Gamers Gab, episode with
Sure.
it. That'd be awesome. And that'd be great. That I would really very much love it.
If you need any theme music, you can do it on the theme music.
I
I'm all for it.
I was thinking, like, I have these little 10-second like introductions, like the little like funky beat stuff, because I don't know, I like funk. But if there was something that you wanted to add specifically for your episode, I would love it. That'd be awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. If
I'll
it
look into it,
if it is something that you have time for, obviously. If you don't,
And if
don't.
it matches your format as well, too, I don't want to change your format too much.
Oh, you can entirely change my brand. That's fine. So, okay. So I lied. There is one more question. I don't know if you thought about it and I didn't warn you in
I'm
advance.
here.
Okay.
I cleared my schedule for the evening.
Oh, awesome. Well, this is a very, hopefully a quick question, but if there was, is there a content creator that you would like to see on Gamers Gab? And if so, what would the topic be? It's okay, the power of editing, so don't worry.
No,
okay.
I get you. I'm not trying to think too much about it. I guess because that's just a nomination, right? It's like, I choose you. I nominate you for the.
Yeah.
I guess like the reason why I'm thinking about it is I'm trying to remember everyone's streams and my interactions with them and conversations I may have had with them that I've been like, oh, I'd love to hear you talk about this more. Or give have them have a place to kind of talk about that. But I'd also I don't know if this is extra information, but I'm also relatively new to the community.
Sure.
Because I've kind of been just doing music stuff before, and then I was doing Animal Crossing stuff a little bit, and then like started reaching out to some other creators, and then a bunch of songs are happening, and then Team and Talk, and then everything else. So I'm still kind of like learning everyone, meeting everyone.
Sure. Yeah.
I think what about Trong?
Ooh, I have not had Trong. What would the topic be?
I think it may be interesting to talk to Trong about being a pillar to a degree. I don't know if pillar, I'd say pillar, a connector, known person in the community, through not his own content.
Yeah.
And maybe how that makes him feel, maybe how that kind of became, I don't know. I think that'd be very interesting to kind of hear his approach and his reasoning.
Yeah.
Because again, I'd like to say that everyone knows who Trong is, and again, it's not necessarily 100% through his own content. Like I know he does the Lost Race, and I know, he's prevalent, but maybe that's an interesting conversation.
That it would be. In fact, something that I found very interesting, and this is kind of like the end, is that Trong and Crunchy specifically make content and make things for other people to participate in and enjoy. So Crunchy's races are famous for really bringing the community together. But I was always surprised that up until recently, Crunchy's numbers did not reflect the impact that he had left on Animal Crossing. And Trong is the same. And so I think that would actually be a really great conversation, as being the behind the scenes pillar of an entire gaming community. That would be awesome. I love that idea. And everyone agrees. That's
awesome.
yeah, that's awesome. So
Let's go.
so Cleo, thank you so much for being part of Gamers Gab. I had a really great time. I hope you did too. And
I did.
Okay. And so with that, friends, I will catch you next time. So goodbye.
Bye.
So just letting you know that I am pressing the recording button now. Did you want to put on the ET mask?
I did.
Okay.
I did.
Okay. Okay.
I was listening to you, so I didn't.
Okay.
I'm gonna take this off.
Yeah, it's totally fine.
I can still kind of hear you.
Okay.
Just a heads up.
All right. Cool beans.
It's very faintly.
Yeah.
This protects the do-rag's kind of protecting the hair. That's
The important thing. Yeah.
that was the behind it.
My husband is watching this unfold, and I think he has a little slight bit of like horror on his face. And I have to tell you, I was like,
you can feel free to press record whenever you'd like.
the recording is already there. This is going to be permanently on Gamers Gab.
Somewhere.
The face of terror.
To see,
Huh?
So there's that. Okay, how do I look?
I don't know if he can see me or hear me, but I'm just going to give him the thumbs up that he looks terrifying.
I can't hear you.
Okay. All right.
And I don't know if we can still deal off with this, but we're gonna try. We're gonna try. Let's go for it. Let's go all the way. Okay. Yeah. All right.
This is truly the most unhinged Gamers Gab that in my very long recordings that I have ever done. I guess we're going to be not only talking about artificial intelligence, but off-Terran intelligence today.
I'm ready for it.
All right. Also, if you feel like you need to take it off, because I think you've mentioned that you've struggled with breathing, you're not obligated.
I will definitely remove it
Okay.
when the time is right. But I did also put a little slit in it here, so I'll have some breathing space. So it's good. I came prepared.
Oh my God. Oh God. I don't regret this decision. I don't. But also, I'm going to have nightmares about this for the rest of my days.
I think the same, honestly.
Oh my God. Jesus. All right. So if you want to do the slide off for it, and then you can come in, and then I'm just like, oh geez.
Okay, yeah, I'll do that.
All right.
Oh, okay.
Yep. No, you're fine. Okay. So we are recording in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1.